Hi everyone, welcome to episode 10 of Behind the Brush. I'm Joy Baker with All About Art Gallery in Hendersonville, Tennessee. And today I am joined by one of our local artists, Dina D'Argo. Hi Dina.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me.
It is my pleasure.
We are so happy to have you here. For anyone who doesn't know, Dina is one of our local artists, as I mentioned. She lives just outside of Nashville. But Dina, you're not originally from here, right? Are you from California, you
I
said?
am. I'm from Southern California, the North San Diego coastal area.
Okay.
And then I moved to a very rural part of California, the Sierra foothills,
Mhm.
and then I moved to Hawaii, and then I moved here.
Nice. So you've been here for a few years now,
I
right?
have. I've been here almost 10 years. It's the longest I've lived anyplace.
Nice. Well, we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
So Dina, tell me a little bit about your background as an artist. Have you been an artist your whole life? What led you to this path?
I have been an artist my whole life.
Mhm.
I've been a professional artist to some degree, probably 40 of my 58 years. I started
Mhm.
showing my work really young, but just kind of here and there,
Wow.
part-time, and I've had many different jobs and careers that interrupted that.
Mhm.
I've been a full-time professional artist now for about 15 years.
Wow, that's
And my
awesome.
background's in fashion design, which is really the only
Mhm.
professional training I had for art was
Mhm.
the sketching and color theory and that.
Mhm.
I've never had any other formal art training.
Did you spend a lot of time in fashion design? Like, what did you do with that?
I
part of
was
your
a
career?
designer in Los Angeles for about 10 years.
Mhm.
Yeah. It was, people tell you you can't make a living as an artist. So as a woman in my early 20s, I decided I needed to go to college for something, and fashion design seemed like a good flow. After a while in the industry, it just wasn't creative enough. It was a little bit frustrating. It's kind of a gritty business. So it's got its fun times, but I needed more studio time.
Gotcha. So is that kind of what led you to become an artist, or do you feel that it was like much earlier in your life?
Much
that you-
earlier, and that
felt
was
called?
sort of a, it was sort of second choice. If I'm not going to be a full-time artist, I'm going to be a fashion designer. And then I realized, you know what, I can go for my first choice.
Mhm.
I don't have to listen to the other voices saying that's not going to work.
Yes, it is possible to have a career as an
It
artist.
is.
Yeah. So we represent your work, and we, behind us you can see that there's kind of a variety of things that Dina paints. What would you say is your preferred medium to paint in?
Acrylic, definitely.
Mhm.
Early on, I experimented with a lot of different media,
Mhm.
and for a while, I was painting in oils.
Mhm.
I did all kinds of different mixed media. I did some copper etchings and wood and all kinds of things, but
Mhm.
I settled on painting, and I was using oils until I moved to Hawaii,
Mhm.
and they just never dried. And so
Oh, the humidity, I guess.
Yes, and I was in a very humid area. I was right on the edge of the rainforest.
Mhm.
Literally weeks, I would wait for a piece to dry
Oh,
so that I could do something else with it. And so I started experimenting with acrylic, and I found that depending on how you use it, it can be anything. You can make
Mhm.
it look like watercolor, you can make it look chunky and thick,
Mhm.
you can make it look like oil paint. It just depends
Mhm.
what you mix with it and how you use it. So I kind of fell in love with the flexibility.
And so are most of your pieces, would you kind of consider them mixed media? Like, do you mix in like paste and things like that to
Some,
thicken it
yes.
up?
Yes, I use a lot of textural products,
Mhm.
but those are technically still acrylic based.
Okay.
So you can call it mixed media, but it still is an acrylic product.
Gotcha. And so like with the pieces behind us,
Mhm.
this piece in the center in particular is one of my most favorite of
Thank
your
you.
pieces. I love it. This is part of a series that you're currently working on, right?
Yes, the Terra series, which
Mhm.
I'm just obsessed with.
Nice. Awesome.
And
So-
these do definitely they all have some textural surface element to them, all the Terra pieces.
Mhm.
That to me is really something that conveys that earthly feel. It's almost like a stone texture or a
Mhm.
ground texture, which I really, really like for these nature-based pieces.
And do you paint these primarily with a brush, or is it a palette, or like a palette knife?
Both. And
Okay.
that's kind of specific to my style, is I really
Mhm.
combine a lot of sheer layers of paint with a brush, and
Mhm.
I layer that and allow those colors to overlap and blend.
Mhm.
And then I use palette knife as well for all the really sort of crisp and heavier marks that you see.
I see. Nice. So what do you aim to communicate through your artwork? Like, do you, because they're all so different, we have like
Mhm.
something earth related, we have trees, we have this, most of it seems very grounded in nature. Is that kind of what you're
Definitely.
wanting to emanate and put out there?
Absolutely. I would say that's the connecting line between all my pieces, is they all are nature-based in some way. To me, all art connects you to sort of a deeper part of yourself. You know, we have all these things in our life that we have to do and worry about, like, what time does the post office close? Is that latch on the gate gonna work, you know? And it's necessary, but it's not the real us, right? So to me, I feel like art is something that conveys this deeper message, and it connects us to an internal vulnerability and sort of a core of oneness. And for me, nature is where I find that. So that's what I choose to express in my artwork. So you will find that even though the style might vary a little and the look might vary a little, it's always something that I'm striving to connect the viewer to this feeling that you get from being in nature.
Well, I think you definitely accomplished that.
Thank you.
So how do you feel that you're growing as an artist as you continue to work on different series? Because I feel like each of these paintings behind me is kind of from a different series that you've worked on.
Yeah.
So how do you feel that you continue to grow?
It's interesting that you say that, because I've been thinking a lot about the nature of being an artist. There's always this sort
nature.
of nature. There's always kind of this balance between frustration and wonder. At least for me, there is, right? That leads you to always push further with the art. And by that, I don't mean the art becomes more dramatic or more edgy, but you're always trying to say more and to communicate more. I'm finding that, for instance, with the tarot pieces, that's been kind of a breakthrough for me, that it's almost abstract. And I feel like somehow the viewer picks up on the message even more than my more representational pieces. It's almost like there's room for them to become in the art somehow.
Kind of put their own personal viewpoint to it, really. Like
Yes,
they can
and
identify
to sort
with it
of
for some reason.
meld with it somehow.
Yeah.
And so I think as I go through the years of painting, and I think all artists, or most artists, are probably like this, where you're never really at the finish line, because there is no finish line. It's kind of all about what do I want to say now? What do I want to explore now? You know, there might not be a concrete message, but I'll kind of ask myself, why? Why am I painting this? What do I want to, what emotion do I want to evoke? What do I want to draw attention to? So those things move and change, right? So there's always something to strive for. And I can honestly say, even though I'm personally attached to certain pieces, I'm not 100% satisfied with anything I paint ever. So there's always a lot of room to go further and to do better.
Is any artist ever
I don't think so.
fully satisfied?
I don't think so, right? Like I'll
Yeah.
hear interviews with some of the artists that I have admired for so long, and they all say like, oh, what I painted last year was, you know, I won't say it, but like, oh my gosh, what I would do to own one of those pieces, and they're done with that.
Or what they feel is garbage.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, is you have to be, so for instance, what they're painting now, I may not like that, but you have to be willing to also risk losing your audience to be true to what you want to put out there.
Yes, and
right?
to push yourself as an artist.
Right, so you have to be willing to say, you know, I was doing this 10 years ago, and I have some collectors who love that, and I cross my fingers and hope that they follow my career into what I'm doing next. But if they don't, you can't just stay stuck in that, you know, you have to be true to what you want to do and what's really moving you emotionally to paint.
And I personally think that's one of the best things about you as an artist, is that you paint what's true for you, you paint what's inspiring for you. And I think that's why, like, I don't know how to articulate what I'm trying to say. Like we were talking earlier about you were, you're really involved in your Terra series, and everything has been kind of in these gray tones, and you're ready to move forward with color. I'm so glad that you don't base your paintings off of the Pantone colors of the year.
Right.
You know, you base them off of, I'm feeling this today, and I want to paint this because I feel it.
And
And I think that that's
those
wonderful.
Pantone colors, it's interesting because they do choose those based on what they think people are sort of naturally gravitating toward.
Mhm.
But you can't push yourself into it. You
Mhm.
know, it's interesting to me. It's
Mhm.
interesting to see. Oh yeah, I've felt that lately too, or I
Mhm.
feel a need for that color, and sometimes I don't. You know, when you can't just say, well, that's what I need to paint because that's what Pantone says is hot.
Right.
And I think people know that when they see the piece, when they see the artwork. I think they know if there's an authenticity there.
Mhm.
And I think that's what they connect with, you know. To me, that's what's so important with anything handcrafted, is
Mhm.
there's a life to it and there's a realness to it.
Mhm.
And if you're just trying to reproduce something, it's not the same.
Right. It's not as authentic.
It's like an unspoken language. It's like you're speaking to them and they hear it.
Mhm.
And if you're just speaking things that don't matter to you,
Yeah,
they can tell.
monotone.
Yeah.
So, speaking of the gray things that you've been working on,
Mhm.
is that a part of your Terra series? Like, what are you
Yes.
currently in the middle of?
The Terra, I just keep doing more and more with that. There's so much, there's so many possibilities with it.
Mhm.
So yes, I have a piece in that series that's brand new, that is all these neutral grays and creams, and a little bit of black, a little bit of gold,
Mhm.
but all very like earth colors.
Which seems odd for earth colors. Like, what inspired the grays
The
and
piece
pinks?
is called Rare Earth, and it's all those rare earth minerals, which I thought would be brilliant colors, right? They're
Mhm.
valuable, so I thought they'd be like emeralds and rubies, but it turns out they're all gray, tan, beige.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so that inspired me. But also with those gray tones, I have a couple of landscapes. They're just
Mhm.
sort of grayed skies with a little bit of color.
Mhm.
But you know what? I kind of was in that for a while,
Mhm.
and then I see the pieces warming up and getting more and more colorful, and now I crave the color again.
I was gonna ask if your art ever reflects how you're feeling internally.
Definitely.
Like, do you think that
Definitely.
the gray things and the more monochromatic sort of stuff has been through kind of a period in your life, and now you're ready to, like, kind of move forward into something more lively and colorful, like?
You know what? I think it reflects not necessarily what I'm in, but what I need. You know, what I want to see. And to me, I think that's the same with almost any creative media, whether it be music or art or fashion, is that people gravitate toward what fills a need for them, you know, an emotional need. So, you know, whether that be color or, you know, anything else, I think it's not so much what I feel like right now, it's what I want, what I need to feed myself with.
Yeah, what you need to project
Mm-hmm.
out and in.
Yes.
Nice. Well, Dina, this has been really, really great. I appreciate you coming to talk with me today so much.
I'm really glad to do it.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you asked me.
Well, we are so thankful. For anyone who doesn't know, we are all about art gallery and custom framing. We're located in the City Square Shopping Center at 260 West Main Street in Hendersonville, Tennessee. And we represent more than 50 different local artists like Dina, who paint wonderful, amazing, brilliant things. And we have so much to offer. Feel free to come by and see Dina's works in person, or you can see them on our website, allaboutartgallery.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call, 615-826-9880.
That's a lot of artists. I didn't know you had that many.
We do.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. Yep. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
Really appreciate
It's a
it.
pleasure.
And thank you.